Hey everyone, it's Davey Mooney coming to you from the University of North Texas where I run the jazz guitar program. Benedetto artist, Sunnyside Records artist. Got my 4 Sunnyside CDs up here, and the new one is coming way back. Recorded down in Brazil at the end of July. Really excited. It's got some, as I've been saying, I think the best stuff on this new record is some of the best stuff I've ever done. Also got some Mel Bay books, Personalizing Jazz Vocabulary, and Into the Labyrinth, an Anatomy of Position Playing for Jazz Guitar. Kind of more of a jazz improv book, and then this one's about the nuts and bolts of figuring out the fretboard and my own journey in that respect. Everything's going well over here at UNT, just, early November? I don't know when you'll see this video. But I've been thinking about one of my favorite standards, the tune How About You? Written by Burton Lane, and in the early 1940s. It's from a movie called Babes on Broadway, with I think that's a Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney. I've never actually seen the movie, but this song first came to my attention when I was pretty young, from the movie The Fisher King, the Terry Gilliam movie from like 91. And it's funny, I play this song with my students, and I'm like, do you guys know The Fisher King? Nobody knows this movie, and I feel like it was kind of popular back in the early 90s, and all those Terry Gilliam, I was a big Terry Gilliam fan, from Monty Python, obviously, and the movie Brazil. That movie blew my mind, still blows my mind. And what else? Adventures of Baron Munchausen, etc. I think he's still kicking, still making movies. I haven't seen one in a while, but anyway, that song is featured very prominently in that movie. And but yeah, there's a lot of great versions, and this is one with a lot of variations in the chord changes, and I know this is like a motif in all these videos I make, especially ones on standard tunes, sort of Tin Pan Alley American Songbook standards, that you want to learn the tune from the record, but it becomes a situation of like, which record? This one has a lot of variation, and I think maybe a starting point would be the Frank Sinatra album, Songs for Swingin' Lovers, because, man, the 1950s, Nelson Riddle arranged Frank Sinatra records are like one of the best collections of, American popular song, along with, the Ella Fitzgerald songbooks and some other people. I don't mean to, like, leave anybody out, so I'm not going to say any more, but, man, the Nelson Riddle arrangements are so killer. And Sinatra, just to kind of go through the changes he plays, and then maybe a few other versions. I mean, there's so many. I feel like I'm going to talk about Sinatra, Bill Evans, and then one of my favorite records, jazz guitar records, which is Jimmy Raney, Live in Tokyo from 1976 on the Xanadu label with Sam Jones and Leroy Williams. There's a great version on there, and he does his own kind of changes. And then, of course, I have my own. I sort of borrow a little bit from each one and put together my own set of chords. So Sinatra, they actually start in the key of E, which is interesting, right? It's kind of like when he does Just in Time, he's in the key of B. And that's interesting. I guess that was the key for his voice. But they do one chorus in E, and then they modulate up to F. Bill Evans does it in F. Jimmy Raney does it in E flat, because he wanted to be different, I guess. But it's really, the basic idea from the Sinatra changes. You have the key of E. It's a 32-bar tune, but each 8-bar section is different, right? I guess the third 8 bars is kind of like the first, but you never have an exact repetition, so you kind of have this E major. And you walk up the scale like 1, 2, 3. I like New York in June. Flat 3 diminished. 2, how about you? 5, right? And then you walk up again. I like a Gershwin too. Flat 3 diminished again, and then like 3 minor 7 flat 5. How about you? To 3. I don't want to say. Sometimes I get all these numbers. I make some little errors in what I say, but 3 minor 7 flat 5, 6 dominant, and then here. Some people go to a 2 minor chord, but Sinatra, to be in the key of E, actually goes to like A sharp or B flat minor 7 flat 5, like the tritone sub, the minor 7 flat 5 chord, tritone away from the root, so to the 4 minor. 3 chord again, when the sun is new, to a 6 chord. And that's pretty different than what, what Bill Evans does or when you're improvising over this tune. So again, you got, I like New York in June, 1, 2, 3, flat 3 diminished 2, how about you, 5, and then 1, walk up again, 2, 3, same thing, but then like 3 minor 7 flat 5 to 6 dominant, and then like an A sharp minor 7 flat 5 down to like an A flat minor to the 3 chord or 1 6, I guess you could call it, like an E major with a 3rd in the bass to the 6, and then right to the major 3. You sort of modulate to the key of the 3 in this case because we're in the key of E, which is bizarre. I probably should be analyzing this in E flat or F, but we're looking at Sinatra, so we got to give him his due. So basically, you go to the key of A flat major for a second, but it's all over like a dominant pedal, so it's all over like an E flat pedal. A lot of people, when they get to this chord, they sort of turn around in that key, so they'll go 1 6 2 5 1 in the key of, in this case, A flat, the 3, the major 3. And then often, like, it's kind of like if you watch my Triste video, it's kind of like this thing too, where they'll go. So it's the major 3, and then it kind of becomes a dominant 6, dominant 2, 5, back to E. So that's the first half of the song. Then it starts, like I said, the third 8 bars is similar to the first 8 bars. So, about good books, but then it goes a 2 5 to the 4, like sort of like B in this key, B minor, E7, A flat, A major. Sorry, see those flats creep in there. To, like minor, 4 minor, or sometimes you go to the flat 7 dominant, which is kind of the same thing, right? And then this is kind of a fun part. So he goes, Sinatra and Nelson Riddle, they go like 1 6, so like a E major over G sharp. Let the picture show when all the lights are low. So it's kind of like almost C7, or it's probably B sharp 7, isn't it? With with F double sharp in the bass. No, it's a C7 with a G in the bass. Maybe it's kind of a G diminished, but you kind of get the sense that you get F sharp minor, D7, or maybe A minor 6. I think it's D7. And then the last bit he all does over a dominant pedal. So I like it, and it's probably like it, kind of G sharp, G diminished, like it, all over a B pedal. How about 2 5 1? And then they go up to the key of F. So that last bit of the song, I think that's where the tune 4 comes from, honestly, because it's got that. And at the picture show when all the lights are down, and one thing more. That's my suspicion that maybe that's where that comes from. So that's the real Tin Pan Alley, Nelson Riddle arrangement chord changes to that tune. Bill Evans does something kind of similar. I'll go to the I'll be merciful and go to the key of F, which is the key that he's in. So he starts on, and also I should say something about the really amazing documentary that's on YouTube. It's called The Universal Mind of Bill Evans, and there's a whole sequence where I always show this to my students. It was actually I got hip to this by back at NYU in Brad Shepik's improv class, which was really great. Shout out to Brad Shepik, great guitar player, teacher. And there's this passage where Bill Evans takes the tune "How About You" and he plays it on piano, and he talks about how young players often try to approximate the sound of advanced players rather than trying to treat a song with simplicity at first, so they can have a foundation that they build on. Instead of that, they try to get a vague sound of what the top pianist, and he demonstrates it, and it's really cool. So I encourage you to watch that. You could probably, it's on YouTube. You say I don't know, "How About You," Bill Evans, or "Universal Mind" of Bill Evans, but it's really cool. But so what he does, he starts on this. So if we're in the key of F, right? So he starts on that minor 7 flat 5 off the tritone, and I have to say this is not my favorite progression in the world to improvise over, because I know sometimes you have to do it like on just one of those things where you get that. kind of try to avoid this progression just because I find it kind of awkward to improvise over. But anyway, so Bill Evans goes B minor 7 flat 5, B flat 7, A minor, and then I think a lot of the time it's a little hard to hear because he does it on that record Conversations with Myself, which I love, by the way. I know some people find that record a little notey, and it's definitely notey. It's kind of I like to hear it. It's kind of like 3 Bill Evanses rather than Bill Evans and the bass player and the drummer all kind of soloing at the same time, which you have on some of those records in the 60s and 70s. It's kind of fascinating to me to hear him be all 3 parts, and just his time and the way things kind of come together, especially Spartacus Love Theme, but other songs on that record too. So my point is, it's a little hard to hear sometimes whether he's playing like an A-flat diminished or if it's an A-flat dominant there, but he goes B minor 7 flat 5, B flat 7, kind of A minor, or F over A flat diminished, G minor, C7, and then he goes, the second 4 bars, he goes 1, he walks up to a little different, well, pretty different actually, F major, G minor, A minor, B flat 7, instead of another flat 3 diminished, A minor 7 flat 5, D7, then he goes G minor, minor 4, kind of A minor, or I guess it's F over A, and then he does the 2-5 to the major 3. The Sinatra one does this interesting thing where it goes to the 6, minor 6, and then right to the major 3 without like a 5-1 preparation. But Bill Evans is nice, and he he makes it a little more improv friendly, right, for somebody trying to take a jazz solo over the song. So a 2-5 to A, and then it's kind of 1-6, 2-5, 1, and then 2-5 back to same thing. C7, G minor, C7, and then C minor, F7, B flat 7, major, B flat minor, or E flat 7, holding hands at the picture show when all the lights are low. He does the 2-5. He doesn't do this crazy, although it's the same thing, harmonically as what Sinatra does. So F major, this is the last 8 bars, right? So F major, A flat minor, D flat 7, then G minor, and a walk down to E minor 7 flat 5, A7, D minor 7, G7, G minor 7, C7, F. So it's kind of like how he does the end of How Deep Is the Ocean, the sort of, where you go like E flat, G minor, C7, F7, F minor, B flat 7, E flat. So that's significantly different than the Sinatra ones where you have it all, that last bit is all over a dominant pedal, and it sounds more like a, 3 flat 3 diminished 2-5-1 over a dominant pedal. Bill Evans is going, So that's 2 versions right there. So I guess you could go with the Bill Evans changes and feel pretty confident that it's going to get you through the melody and pretty comfortable to improvise on. But there's I got to give some love to Jimmy Raney, who I still think, we talk about him a little bit, very underrated still, and his discography is so scattered. It's not, you can't find this on the streaming services, Xanadu label, and it's a drag because I don't know if you can find the Barry Harris record from the same, it's got to be the same tour. I think they called it like the Silver Session Tour. I think there's a reissued CD. I don't know if it's a box set, but I was reading on the internet about it with some liner notes about this tour that they did. Was Charles McPherson on it? Somebody like that. But it's Jimmy Raney, Sam Jones, and Leroy Williams, and there's a whole album, 1976, live in Tokyo. There's a Barry Harris, like I was saying, there's a Barry Harris album with the same trio, and that's basically Barry Harris's trio. That's one of the best Barry Harris records. But they do the Jimmy Raney one. They do all kind of cool songs. This is the first song on the album. They do Here's That Rainy Day. Of course, that's the Jimmy Raney joke that he likes. And they do Cherokee, and he does this unaccompanied Stella by Starlight. That's really, a trip. And it's one of Jimmy Raney's best performances. But yeah, you can't find any of his stuff, or it's scattered. You can't find like the homage to Bartok that he did, where he's wrote a string quartet arrangement. He's soloing with a string quartet. Anyway, so Jimmy Raney is in E flat, right? Because he wants to be different. And sometimes, I feel like Sam Jones plays different things every time. But it's kind of, at one point I hear him go kind of 1, 4, 3, flat 3 diminished, which is kind of what I do on the song. That kind of thing. So like E flat major, E flat 6, A flat 7, G minor, F sharp diminished, F minor, B flat. And then I think the second time they don't really go to the F sharp diminished because they go they stick in another chromatic 2/5 before G minor 7, C7 to F. And what I like and what I take from this version primarily, so and I'm going to play on the song in a second, I'm playing in the key of E flat, and I go E flat major, A flat 7, G minor, F sharp diminished, F minor, B flat, and I do it again. E flat, A flat, G minor, F sharp. I like to lean into the diminished chord, that F sharp diminished. It gets replaced a lot by different chords, or just kind of like people don't want to think about it. But in this instance, I'm thinking, really lean into that F sharp diminished as like a D7 chord, a 5 of 3 in the key of, in this case we're in the key of E flat. I kind of just like the melody of that. The other thing I like about this Jimmy Raney version is instead of going to F minor to A flat minor, instead of going 2 and then minor 4 1, he does an F dominant, and I kind of like that sound. Like F7, D flat 7 to E flat major. So I do that. Although I think what they do there is kind of interesting. They kind of go F7, D flat 7, and kind of like a 2/5 back to E flat. 5 back to E flat, and then right to G without the 2/5 that Bill Evans does. So Bill Evans is kind of the only one of this crop of versions of this song. The Oscar Peterson version follows the Sinatra pretty closely, but Bill Evans is the only one who gives us a 2/5 before the major 3 chord. So Jimmy Raney. Then right to G, G major, 1, 6, 2, 5, G major, C7, F minor, B flat 7, E flat. Or 2/5 to the 4 chord, and Jimmy Raney does something else different. He goes. So he goes E flat major, like A7 to A flat major. May not be new. No, I can't remember what they do there. Oh yeah, then they go may not be new. No. So it's something different. Instead of going E flat major to like F sharp B, like you would in 4, and like Sinatra and Bill Evans do, he goes E flat major, A7, like a tritone sub to get to the 4 chord again instead of the 2, and then may not be new, then A minor 7 flat 5, A flat minor, G minor C7, F minor B flat 7, E flat. So man, that's 3 very different sets of changes from 3 versions that I think you could definitely consider to be, canonic or definitive in a certain sense. They're not just like Joe Schmo. Sorry, like they're famous jazz musicians playing this song back in the day, and it's all different. So it's like, what chord changes do you do? Do you just go to the fake book or the iReal Pro? I think that's why maybe there's a usefulness to fake books, or to digital fake books like we have these days on our phone. Like I said, I kind of have my own set of chords. I borrow a lot of the Jimmy Raney stuff. Well, mainly this. I like that, and then I like to go to E flat, and then a 2. I like to give a 2/5 to the G, just to give it a little break, and then at the end I do the. When all the lights are low, lean into the flat 3 diminished where it occurs, you know. And harmonically, it's interesting, right? You got this 1, 4, 3, flat 3 diminished, 2, 5. That happens in a lot of songs, you know. And then to have it again, and then have that flat 3 diminished kind of be 5 of G minor 7 flat 5, you know. So you get. And sometimes, you know, if you try to play every chord, it can sound a little goofy. Sometimes I just try to play like 1, and then hit the flat 3 diminished and go to 2. Right, and then, because the second time that 3 diminished, flat 3 diminished, sorry, sometimes I forget how to say flats, or I say flats where I don't mean to say flats. It's kind of, like I said, 5 of the 3 minor 7 flat 5. Like sort of D7 to G minor, but then it's a minor 7 flat 5. So I played all those changes in that sequence, like with the 2-5 to the 3, major 3, and going around the cycle and trying to hit all those things. And then 2-5 to 4, 4, 4 minor, 1. That chromatic 2-5, then a F sharp, B7, and then 2. Then that 5 to the 6, C minor, and then F7, 2-5 to E flat. So I'm going to play a few choruses on the thing and explore the nooks and crannies of this really cool standard tune. And yeah, y'all, Jimmy Raney in Tokyo, 1976, Songs for Swingin' Lovers, Conversations with Myself. 3 very different and yet kind of equally fascinating records to me with versions of this song. And Terry Gilliam, y'all, Fisher King, Brazil, Munchausen, all that stuff, Monty Python, love it. All right, enjoy.